Good evening. We come on the air with breaking news about that deadly truck ramming attack in New Orleans. Any moment now, President Biden is set to speak about the attack, which is now being investigated as an act of terrorism by the FBI. Here's what we know at this hour. It happened early this morning on New Orleans' bustling Bourbon Street. The FBI says a driver intentionally rammed a Ford pickup truck, which appears to be a rental, into crowds who were celebrating the new year. At least 15 people are dead. More than 30 others are hurt. The New Orleans police superintendent says the driver was, quote, hellbent on creating carnage. The FBI identifying the suspect as 42-year-old Shamsud-Din Jabbar, a U.S. citizen from Texas and an Army veteran who was killed in a shootout with police. The agency also says an ISIS flag and other explosives were found in the truck. Agents are asking the public for help to find any other potential leads, and there have been various questions about whether there may be others who have been involved in this. Officials say their case is very active, and they still are clearing the crime scene tonight there. Let me go to Tom Llamas right now, who has been watching along with us from New Orleans. Tom, what's the status of things now?
Lester, good evening. Well, I want to show our viewers where this all happened. It happened just behind me there in the corner. The alleged terrorist drove his pickup truck right through here. He jumped the curb, getting around a police cruiser, and then hit Bourbon Street and went 3 blocks straight. His pickup truck was not his only weapon. He also had at least one firearm and also an explosive device. He drove for 3 blocks, Lester, and imagine this, 3 a.m., Bourbon Street, New Year's Day. It was packed with revelers. He killed at least 15 people so far. That number is expected to grow, possibly because several people right now are fighting for their lives inside of New Orleans hospitals. When he crashes his car into a crane on Conti Street, again, which is 3 blocks up, he gets out and he gets into a shootout with police. Police were able to shoot and kill him, and that's where the investigation has begun from here. There are still some major questions, including why did he pick New Orleans? Why New Year's Day? One reason might be the massive crowds that come here on any night to have a great time on Bourbon Street, but also because the Sugar Bowl, just behind me is the Superdome over there, and the Sugar Bowl is one of the biggest college football games around, Lester, as you know. It was set to take place. It's going to be postponed now, but there were those huge Sugar Bowl crowds rooting on the University of Georgia and Notre Dame in town for the big game as well, and the alleged terrorists might have thought this would have been a good target. The other big question people are asking, why were there no barriers? Behind me here on Bourbon Street, there should be what are known as bollards. They're essentially metal poles, if you will, and they stop cars from going inside. Well, they were redoing all of them for the Super Bowl, and I've been told by sources close to the projects that were ongoing here in New Orleans to replace those bollards that there was a rush. They wanted to fast-track this project to get those bollards up before the Super Bowl, which is just about a month away, a little over a month away here in New Orleans, and that the work was being done very quickly. Because it was being done very quickly, they removed all the bollards on Bourbon Street. So essentially, the alleged terrorist, when he came through here, he got around that squad car. He had free reign to go all the way down Bourbon Street, really with not a lot stopping him, and that's why he was able to go at least 3 blocks. Those questions are being asked right now, Lester, and a lot of people here in New Orleans just shaken to their core. Not only people who live in New Orleans, they love New Orleans, but also all the people that are in town, the tourists that came here to celebrate New Year's Day and college football and got a much different experience, Lester.
And Tom, as you know, there has been a lot of questions about a possible motive here. There was a flag that was hitched to a trailer, if I understand, an ISIS flag. Have officials gone further to discuss what they think might be a specific motive in this case?
You know, I will say this, Lester. The investigation, obviously, as you know, is very fluid. They have reported that ISIS flag was on the back of the pickup truck. You can see that in some of the images that have been taken of the white pickup truck. It looks like he had a large pole with the black flag attached to the back of that pickup truck on that pole. You can see it right here. It's in the center of the bed right there. And so that's one of the things, obviously, the FBI that's now leading the investigation is going to be looking at. The other thing that is interesting in this case, we're talking about a U.S. citizen who is also an Army veteran, right? We understand now he had a career in the Army. He served in Afghanistan in both human resources and IT capacities. He was also a realtor and a property manager in Texas before this all happened. So there's a lot of questions on when did he become radicalized? What was the motive here? Why he chose New Orleans? And was he indeed working with ISIS? And also the big question, Lester, and this has been going back and forth, were there others who had helped him? The FBI initially had said they were looking for co-conspirators. That might be changing, but it's still very fresh in the investigation, Lester.
All right, Tom Llamas, thanks very much. Again, we're standing by. We expect to hear remarks at any moment by President Biden, who will be making his first public comments about this horrible tragedy. Let me go to Jesse Kirsch, who is also in New Orleans and gathering on this story as well. Jesse, what can you report?
Yeah, so Lester, we are just outside of the Superdome, which is set to host the Sugar Bowl, part of the college football playoff tomorrow, and then the Super Bowl. And as you can see, they have added further barriers along the border here tonight in a city that has a lot of questions facing it as far as security preparations ahead of New Year's Eve.
Hours after that bloody attack on Bourbon Street, tonight growing questions about the physical barriers used to secure the area. Devices known as bollards, typically short stainless steel posts, are often used in high-profile parts of cities and towns to help control crowds and vehicles. But early this morning on Bourbon Street, the bollards weren't there. New Orleans' mayor explained today that the system was in the midst of repairs.
Bollards were not up because they are near completion, with the expectation of being completed, of course, by Super Bowl.
The game set to be played in New Orleans next month. The superintendent of police says other barriers like police vehicles and officers were in place to secure Bourbon Street on New Year's Eve. But video shows how the attacker drove right around a patrol car.
So we did indeed have a plan, but the terrorist defeated it.
Anything that is currently in the midst of being repaired had a backup replacement for last night.
It had vehicles and officers were there where all of those ballasts have been. We had that. We knew. So we did have it. And like I said, in this particular case, terrorists just went all the way around up onto the sidewalk.
Was someone getting up on a sidewalk considered impossible or nearly impossible, or was this not something you expected you would have to account for?
Yes, of course, it wasn't something we expected to account for.
New Orleans, the latest high-profile deadly ramming attack following the German Christmas market attack last month, the Berlin truck attack in 2016, and the one in Nice, France that same year. Jose Liris was visiting New Orleans and left the area just before the attack this morning.
The metal barricades were not up, just the standard plastic ones like you see there. There was police there at the entrance, a lot of police there, but the metal barricades were not up.
A city website showing what the new bollards may look like says the project is set to be completed next month. But a nationally televised college football playoff game is supposed to be played here tomorrow night. New Orleans City Council member Helena Moreno says the city is ready.
Do you think New Orleans can host a football game here this week safely?
I'm going to tell you this, that right now so many resources are being deployed down to the city of New Orleans that no doubt about it, we will host a safe game tomorrow. Everything from federal resources, state resources, additional intelligence, like you name it. It's like that's all happening.
And Jesse, again, joining us live from New Orleans. We understand the concern about these bollards and that they weren't in place for this attack. But is there any indication that the attacker was aware that had potentially cased the area before the attack?
At this point, Lester, we haven't seen anything from officials about potential other targets in the city of New Orleans. But what I can tell you is something that would potentially be a prime target in the city this week and also next month is where I am right now. This is the Superdome. It is supposed to host a football game. It was supposed to host it tonight in just a matter of a couple of hours, but that was postponed because of the events in the early morning hours. They have delayed the game till tomorrow. The Super Bowl is also supposed to be played here next month. And what I can tell you has changed here throughout the day. You can see all the flashing police lights. That presence has been here pretty much throughout the afternoon. But what is new in the last couple hours is these barricades. There were some of them down there, but they've extended them down the block throughout the afternoon, Lester.
I spoke with Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill a short time ago. I began by asking if there is an active manhunt underway.
Well, there certainly is continuing to be an active investigation so that we can identify just how many additional individuals were involved. But I can tell you with some certainty that there are multiple individuals who are involved.
There has been some reporting that there may have been individuals who were handling or placing IEDs, explosive devices. Can you confirm that?
Yes, and there was a house fire in New Orleans this morning that was connected to this event where we believe the IEDs were being made.
So you have a location where you believe the IEDs were being manufactured?
We do. It was an Airbnb, so we know that these individuals had rented the house, were using it for that purpose, and then the other events unfolded early this morning.
Under the circumstances, there might be others out there. Is it wise to go forward with the football game, the Sugar Bowl, even a day later?
You know, not my decision, but I would like to see it delayed at least another day. If they asked my opinion, I would tell them that. I think that it was a wise decision to delay it at least a day. This is an active crime scene. And, you know, they just finished removing some of the bodies, and they still haven't removed all of them. I still think that we probably need to wait an extra day.
Is there a further threat to the community?
No, I believe that the community is safe, and there certainly are a lot of there's a huge law enforcement presence here in New Orleans. I believe that everyone is safe, and the governor plans to attend the football game.
Do you believe there will be full accountability for lapses in physical barriers or proper physical barriers at the crime scene?
Yes, I think that, you know, absolutely there's going to be an after-action analysis of any failures that occurred and anything that could have been done and wasn't done to secure that area. And if there's any lapses, then it will be fixed.
Attorney General Murrill, we thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, Lester.
And more now on the deadly attack in New Orleans. Tom Winter, our law enforcement and intelligence correspondent, joins us now. Tom, what will authorities be doing to investigate whether there were co-conspirators involved in this?
Well, just to follow up on that interview that you did there, Lester, with the Attorney General, that Airbnb that we see there in New Orleans is certainly a focus. Were there any individuals that were coming in and out of that Airbnb? Can they get any sort of video from that location? And what about the IEDs? If he was making these improvised or homemade explosive devices there, how was he making them? What was the technical capability of them? Were they remote detonated? Did they have the ability to set them off, or others going to set them off? Who was coming in and out of that house, if anybody? That's going to be a focus. So that's column A. Column B is specifically those particular improvised explosive devices that were not found in the car, but were nearby this scene on Bourbon Street or near Bourbon Street. We are told that initially the FBI was looking at several individuals who were seen near them. They've since wrapped up that investigation, or at least that avenue, and it appears that they are not connected with placing these suspected devices there. So it is still possible overall, Lester, when you look at this investigation, that this individual did in fact act alone, but it's just far too soon to say. And one of the things that they're looking at is, how did this individual become radicalized? In other words, how did he get to a point where he believed in what ISIS was saying, to put that flag on the back of that pickup truck and drive through this crowd and killing these 15 people? How did he get to that point? One thing that they're looking at there is his travel, specifically some travel that took place in late June, early July of 2023, where he apparently flew from New York's JFK airport to Cairo, Egypt. So they're trying to determine, did he actually get on that plane? Was it in fact him in that trip? What occurred when he went overseas? Did that have any connection to what ultimately became this deadly terror attack? And then apparently once he comes back here, Lester, he flies from Atlanta to Toronto several days later, and then comes back here to the U.S. Again, does that have any connection to what we've seen here? So that type of work is going to be ongoing. The FBI is going to be involved with foreign government agencies, foreign law enforcement agencies, to try and determine who he was maybe meeting with overseas, or did it have nothing to do with this at all. It's just part of the work that's going to be ongoing. Closer to home here, Lester, in Houston, the FBI says that they are at a location there where they're conducting some law enforcement activity. That's their words for saying that at some point they're going to be conducting some searches, because we know that this individual is from there, and presumably they're going to be interviewing neighbors, any sort of landlords, anybody that might be connected to this in any sort of way, to figure out who is this person and where did things go so terribly wrong.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.